I'll begin by asking about what was known on the ground early on. There had already been some speculation and discussion among doctors at hospitals in Wuhan that there was this mysterious pneumonia and several cases showing up. What did you know, and when did you first become aware of it?
It was on December 30th of 2019 that we first received the clinical samples of what was then called pneumonia of unknown cause, sent from Wuhan Jinyintan Hospital, with which we had a close partnership. After that, we were busy working on the identification of the pathogen, so we did not notice the reports you mentioned back then. Later, according to the pathogen test, a new coronavirus was detected in these samples. Judging from the sequence information of the virus genome, the similarity between the virus and the SARS virus is less than 80%, which is quite a big difference.
And what was the first thing that you did? Who did you call? Who did you alert within your organization to begin to assess this situation in Wuhan?
After we received the samples of pneumonia of unknown cause from Jinyintan Hospital, we formed an emergency working group to conduct the pathogen test. Because our institute have been experienced in the research and studies on coronaviruses, we have a mature team and technology in this field, which provided a solid foundation for us to carry out the pathogen identification test quickly.
What is your theory on how the virus was able to make it to a city like Wuhan? Did you ever, at any point, worry that it might have come from your lab?
In fact, I'm just as curious as you are. How did this virus get into Wuhan? There is no clear answer yet, but there are many possibilities. For example, it might be brought to Wuhan through infected people or animals, or through the cold chain transported contaminated food, and so on. But in any case, it is certainly impossible that the virus was made by or leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. We did not worry that the virus might have been leaked from the institute. It was mainly because the management of the biosafety lab of the institute has always been very strict and standardized. In the past, there have never been any biosafety accidents such as a pathogen leak or human infection. Moreover, after the identification of the genome sequence of the virus, we found that it was a brand new type of coronavirus that we had never come across or studied or obtained before. Therefore, from the beginning, it has been very clear to us that it had no connection to our research institute.
So the institute has a 100% safety record?
Yes. So far, I should better say that in Chinese.
So far, there has never been any biosafety accidents such as pathogen leak or human infections in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
So what do you make of theories that allege the virus was leaked from this institute?
Actually, several scientists at our institute and I myself have repeatedly clarified about the virus leak rumor. It is completely untrue. It was as early as December 30th of last year when we first came across the samples containing the novel coronavirus, and we had never contacted, researched, or obtained it before that. We didn't even know the existence of this virus, let alone leak it. I would also like to add that so far there has been zero infection among the entire staff of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which very well proves that the virus could not have been leaked from the institute.
It's been stated that there is no virus like SARS-CoV-2, but there is one that was being studied in the lab that is at least a 96% match, RATG13. Where is that sample now, and what more do you know about it?
First of all, I think we need to be clear that knowing the genetic sequence of a virus is not the same as having this live virus. These are two completely different concepts. Now that there are biological tools that allow us to get information about the genome sequence of the virus, this process does not necessarily involve a live virus. It might not be a particularly good analogy, but it's like we can get detailed and complete personal information about someone through big data without actually meeting them in person. If you could understand this concept, it may be easier to comprehend that all of the research on RATG13 has been limited to sequencing and analysis of the virus genome sequence. We have never obtained a live virus. RATG13 is 96.2% identical to the novel coronavirus in whole genome sequence, which might seem like quite a high percentage to the general public. But the novel coronavirus is one of the RNA viruses that has the largest genome, or to be exact, coronaviruses are one of the RNA viruses that have the largest genome. The whole genome of the SARS-CoV-2 has about 30,000 bases. RATG13 has a difference of 3.8% from SARS-CoV-2, which means that there are more than 1,100 different nucleotide positions. It would take a very long time for this virus to mutate and become SARS-CoV-2 by natural evolution. Moreover, the likelihood is extremely slim that more than 1,100 mutations would just happen to occur in these corresponding positions. Edward Holmes, who is probably one of the world's most authoritative experts on the virus evolution, has said that these genomic differences between RATG13 and the SARS-CoV-2 mean it will take 50 years, or at least 20 years, for RATG13 to naturally evolve to SARS-CoV-2.
And RATG13 is not from the mine where people died of COVID-like illness.
It should be noted that the sample that contained the virus genome sequence of RATG13 was collected from a cave in Mojiang, Yunnan province. But there is no evidence that coronavirus is in any way related to the incident you mentioned where someone died.
What sort of evidence would... I'm just trying to understand how they're not linked at all.
The testing of the people around the mine shows that no one was infected with the coronavirus.
By any coronavirus?
SARS-related coronaviruses.
Okay. Yeah. The World Health Organization is attempting to conduct an inquiry, an investigation. How possible is it to have an objective investigation when the debate around the pandemic has become so politicized?
It is totally wrong to politicize the virus origin tracing. The consensus in the international scientific community is that origin tracing is a scientific issue and it should be determined by scientists through scientific research. Tracing as a scientific issue is difficult enough in itself because it involves a lot of regions, fields, links, departments, and so on. It needs scientists from all over the world to work together through cooperation. Experts from the World Health Organization had online communication with our institute about 2 weeks ago, in which they mainly discussed with us how to further develop international joint research on virus origin tracing in the future. As a research institute of virology, we will actively participate in international cooperation on virus origin tracing in the future and work with scientists from other countries to carry out the detection of the coronavirus and the investigation in wildlife. However, in the process of online communication with the World Health Organization experts, they did not mention any related investigation on the research institute or the laboratory.
They didn't mention any investigation. What they talked was like study. The word they used was like study, projects, international cooperation, but no investigation was mentioned.
So what does that suggest to you?
In terms of the exchange with the World Health Organization, I think they also believe that the coronavirus should have originated from the wildlife in nature and is not made by or leaked from the lab.
Can you, based on that conference call, I'm assuming that there was a discussion of access and the sort of access that WIV would offer to the WHO to help them conduct this study. Can you clarify the degree to which WIV will cooperate with the WHO in whatever they choose to do?
During that discussion, the World Health Organization mainly communicated with us about how to participate in an international scientific team in the future to carry out international joint research on the virus origin tracing. In this aspect, we will fully support the World Health Organization, which we stated at that time, and join an international team with scientists from other countries to carry out the investigation of coronavirus in wildlife, the detection of novel coronavirus, and so on. We are very supportive of this.
So much of this sort of discovery must be about collaboration among scientists in different countries. Do you feel that you and the Institute are still going to be an active part of that, or do you feel because of the tension around the Institute and questions about the origin of the virus that WIV is going to be cut off?
I think the Wuhan Institute of Virology will actively join in an international team of experts on virus origin tracing. Because origin tracing is, after all, a scientific issue, and scientific research should not be politicized, both viruses and infectious diseases are actually the common enemies of all mankind. In view of the seriousness of the pandemic, I think it is very important to carry out global cooperation to figure out the source of the virus and its transmission routes. That's why the Wuhan Institute of Virology will certainly give its full support to this cause.
What sort of impact has the controversy around, or I'll rephrase that, what sort of impact do questions around the lab have on the work you're trying to do here? The questions that are lingering about the origin of the virus that for some people come back to the Institute, that perhaps it leaked, perhaps there was an accident, that these questions are being asked about the Institute. What sort of impact does that have on your work here?
I think probably any person would inevitably feel very angry or misunderstood, being subject to unwarranted or malicious accusations while carrying out research and related work in the fight against the virus in full force. This kind of emotion, I think, is unavoidable, normal, and understandable.
这种情绪我觉得是难以避免的，是正常的，也是可以理解的。但是让我觉得非常骄傲和感动的是，
What makes me very proud and touched is that these researchers remain very professional and dedicated in the whole process.
体现了一种非常专业的。
Despite so many controversies, doubts, and so much pressure, they still devote themselves to the virus-related scientific research, the identification of pathogens, the detection of the virus,
精力放在了新冠病毒相关的科学研究当中去。
and drug screening and vaccine research. They are all doing very valuable work, so I'm very proud of them.
都做出了非常 应该说有价值的工作，所以我很为他们感到自豪。
So you feel it's libel?
我只能说，
All I can say is that there is indeed a small group of people who are making baseless accusations without any evidence that the Wuhan Institute of Virology leaked or made SARS-CoV-2, which is completely untrue and malicious.
Does President Trump owe you an apology?
我觉得。
I don't think the Wuhan Institute of Virology has anything to do with the source of this novel coronavirus. Whether someone apologizes to us or not, it won't change that fact.
都不会改变这样的一个事实。
Safety concerns about the Institute had been raised in a diplomatic cable in January of 2018. What would the diplomats have seen or not seen that would make them worry about a potential accident here?
在此之前啊，美国的官员呢，仅仅在2018年的3月份到访过病毒所一次。
In March of 2018, but we also noticed from the information on the internet that the cable was sent in January, which was earlier than their visit to the Institute. I was actually present in the communication with U.S. officials in March of 2018 in the seminar.
一个座谈会的形式来进行的。那在当时呢，美国的官员没有
At that time, the U.S. officials did not visit any of the laboratories of Wuhan Institute of Virology, and we did not discuss any topic of biosafety, laboratory management at that seminar. In fact, one of the main things we discussed was the history of P4 laboratory construction, and we talked about an international cooperation project that we had undertaken with the U.S. EcoHealth Alliance.
Another
topic was the preparation of a workshop between the U.S. and China in the field of infectious diseases. During that meeting, the U.S. officials gave highly positive feedback about our construction of high-level biosafety laboratory and considered it very important for us to work together with the U.S. Health Alliance to carry out virus surveillance. At the same time, they also hoped to further strengthen the cooperation between the two sides in the field of hygiene and health in the future. What I just said is basically a general overview of the meeting. There was no discussion around biosafety management at that meeting.
So, a January 2018 cable based on a visit that didn't happen until March of 2018 about safety concerns in a lab that they never set foot in?
The fact is that the visit by U.S. officials was in March 2018, during which they did not visit any of the laboratories at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So I'm not really sure what the source of the information was for those concerns.
There are theories also on the Chinese side, some of them endorsed by government officials, that perhaps the virus originated in the U.S. or was even planted in Wuhan by the U.S. military. Has there ever been any evidence of that?
The virus could appear anywhere at any time.
About
SARS-CoV-2, there is no clear answer about the origin in the first place. It is up to the scientists to come to judgment through scientific research. There may always be voices of one kind or another until the final answer is found. We haven't paid much attention to the related reports that you mentioned, but recently we have noticed some studies and reports which indicate that SARS-CoV-2 may have already appeared in other countries at an even earlier time. There are still unanswered questions about where the virus first originated and how it was transmitted, so further research is needed. But I think the tracing of the virus is a very challenging problem, which may take a long time. So we should create a rational environment for tracing the origin, and we should be very patient with it.
The lab has been at the center of international tension. And things in the US are bad, and people are looking for answers. What would you tell Americans right now?
There are a couple of things that I'd like to say. And the first thing I want to say is about the work here at WIV. So the mission of Wuhan Institute of Virology is to spearhead scientific research on viruses for the benefit of all the world's citizens. And the Institute has nothing to do with the origin of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And in fact, we are completely focused on its eradication. And to the American people, rest assured that we are pursuing all solution pathways with you in parallel. And from the beginning of the pandemic until now, the Wuhan Institute of Virology has remained at the forefront, making important progress in the global fight against COVID-19. For example, we are one of the first institutions that have identified the virus and shared its genome sequence with the world. We have developed fast detection methods, and we have identified candidate drugs, and we have developed the first inactivated vaccine of SARS-CoV-2, which is now under phase 3 clinical trial. So the Institute has done a lot in this battle against COVID-19. It is unfortunate that we have been targeted as a scapegoat for the origin of the virus. But make no mistake that our work has been and will always be for the benefit of all. We are the Autobots, not the Decepticons. Okay. And another thing that I want to say is the international cooperation is the most powerful strategy against the humanity's common enemy, which is the emerging infectious diseases. And we look forward in the future collaboration with our American colleagues as well as the international research community at large. It is only together that we can achieve great things for one world, one health. And I'd like to give my best wishes to you all, and thanks for listening.
Yes. Over 7 months into this pandemic, the early days of January of going through these samples, Wuhan going into lockdown, you living and working at the lab, seeing cases rise exponentially around the world, and these questions all coming back to the work that you're doing here. Is there any way to describe the pressure that you and the Institute have been under?
其实我刚才也提到过，就是你可以想象一下，如果我们交换一下位置，当您全力以赴的，然后再和这个病毒开战的时候，却突然受到攻击说，你其实是这个最大的这个坏蛋，你和病毒，这个病毒其实是你制造的。就是在这样一种情况下，您会有一种什么样的感受？
I think you would feel wronged and misunderstood.
就是
or indignant about the groundless rumors. It is understandable, but also inevitable and unavoidable.
编造谣言的这样的一种愤慨，都是就是可以理解的，是难免的，难以避免的。可以说
，It can be said that at that time,
当时我们确实面临很多人的这个不理解，因为我们
We did face a lack of understanding from a lot of people because our institute may not often appear in the public. Most people may not understand what kind of research the Wuhan Institute of Virology is engaged in. In the face of doubts, I think we still promote the related research on SARS-CoV-2. It significantly contributed to this fight with a professional and dedicated spirit.
So what do you say to somebody who says...
May I add a little more? Although we may face many doubts from outside, which bring us a lot of pressure, we are very calm inside our hearts. It is because we know the fact that Wuhan Institute of Virology has no connection with the source of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. When you are calm inside, you are not afraid, and you can devote yourself to work. Deep down inside, we know that we are innocent, right?
What do you say to somebody who says, I don't believe you?
I think time will tell. When the natural origin of the SARS-CoV-2 becomes the consensus among the academic community, and when the cooperation on the issue of tracing is carried out in the future, it will increase people's understanding of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, our high-level laboratory, coronavirus-related research, and our contribution to the COVID-19 pandemic. People may gradually understand us, and their doubts about us will be cleared up.
So, 可能换一种说法 to put it another way, it might be difficult to tell the good transformers from the bad at the first glance, but know that we're the Autobots, not the Decepticons.
So people should believe you?
Sure. And we deserve that.
Is there anything else you think is important to add?
No more else from my side. Yeah.